Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Catherine Horton. Today I need to make a special sound check because I'm on a completely new laptop. So let me just wait. Can you guys hear me?
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr.
That sounds good. It sounds like you guys can hear me. Okay, so to give you an idea of what's currently happening, many of you know, those who have followed my broadcasts know that I have been the victim of prolific hacking recently. 3 of my computers have been attacked. One has been effectively disabled, the one that I'm using for broadcasting. And it was completely trashed. And then another computer that was never, in the internet was hacked as well. And the third computer that was accessed was a brand new computer that I just bought from the store. So anyway, this is the background. So I'm now on a brand new computer. And it's only thanks to the people who supported me that I could even afford to buy this one to make up for the hacks and get back online and get back on my feet. So now I'm perfectly equipped, and I'm going to try this new computer. Now, because it's a new computer and none of the software I use is set up, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity. Sorry, I just keep getting these messages from Chrome that I haven't disabled yet. I have to find a way to do that. Okay, but I thought it's the perfect opportunity to show you, given that I don't have any software set up on this brand new laptop, I thought it would be best to show you how to download OpenOffice because it's not on this computer. So for those people who are filling out the affidavit template, that is one of the big hurdles to overcome because people just maybe don't know how to install software. I mean, I set up computers for my group at CERN, and I've downloaded so much, software, and I've wrangled with so much software. It's ridiculous. So I don't have any fear associated with that. But for people who are not very computer savvy or don't use computers very often, it can be intimidating. And one of the things I would like to show you today is that filling out the affidavit is a walk in the park. It is so easy. You just have to do a couple of things, click on a couple of things, and I will walk you through everything that's required, okay? So this is the remit for today. So today we'll be just talking about things that are relevant for people who are filling out the affidavit template. And if you are a victim of organized stalking, of directed energy weapon assaults, if you've been implanted or your computers get regularly hacked, or you're receiving voice to skull or image to the eye, image to skull, if you're being remote neural monitored or have weird symptoms, or have, what did I not mention yet? Did I mention repeated housebreaking, car stalking, all these things? You are a victim of the Secret Services and you should fill out an affidavit template. Seriously, you should, because these guys are not going to stop. I now have 15 affidavits already. These are very, very long affidavits, very detailed. And I can tell you that the vast majority of targeting is for life. So unless you take action to fight back against this organized crime cartel, they will not let you be. Worse than that, they will even load in your children or your parents or your relatives and friends into this program. So we really have to stand together and fight back against them as one brick wall and push back against them, in complete support and solidarity of each other. And this is the only way we can actually shut them down. But once we do that, it is surprisingly easy to make big changes, actually. So if you're alone, it can be daunting. But then again, I have achieved huge things on my own. Just, I was, I think, the first person ever to go into the High Court, just boom like that, without much preparation because I didn't have the time, and sue the entirety of British intelligence in the High Court. No one expected me to do that. I was pro se. I couldn't get a lawyer. And I just walked in there and tried to sue their pants off. And even though the case was terminated, very, very odd means, nevertheless, it set a record. I've got the transcripts. I got my claim recognized by 2 judges. And I actually broke, legal ground by doing that in ways that are very, very far reaching. So I have managed to kick over an entire tower of obstruction that was placed in victims' path. And it didn't really take that much effort. I paid for my flight to London 3 times, and I paid the court fee 3 times, which was, I think, £140 or something like that. So, okay, it's a lot of money. But then again, if you think about that's all it costs to sue MI6 and MI5 and GCHQ in one fell swoop, and, you know, set a legal precedent in a way that's going to have far-reaching consequences for these bastards, it was worth every penny, frankly. So there's a lot you can do, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't use the courts, because the reason they try to discourage you is because the courts are so powerful. Of course, judges can be corrupt. Of course, courts can be corrupt and are maybe founded on a corrupt basis. But nevertheless, actually, people sue each other in court every single day, and they fight and they get damages and tort every single day. It does work. You can make it work. It just takes a bit of preparation, some courage, and some support. Okay, so I want you to think about it like that. If Catherine Horton, without any legal knowledge what the hellsoever, and a minimal amount of preparation compared to the average target, could, you know, bust a British intel balls in the High Court just like that, think about how much you can do with all your experience of targeting, with maybe a couple of weeks of preparation, and maybe with the support of 2 or 3 or 5 or 50 people. Okay, you can do amazing amounts. So this is what I really encourage you to do, okay? And I have tried to get everybody onto the same page. I have recognized, because I know from my own case, but I've also listened to a lot of victim cases. I have consulted a lot of victims. I've provided counseling. I've looked at international cases up and down, all the way from the US to Canada, all the way to Australia, and of course Europe. So I have now a very good idea of what's going on regarding Secret Service criminality. And what I made is an all-encompassing template that contains 90% or 99% of the crimes committed by the Secret Services against civilians. And what's so unusual is that the typical victim will suffer not just one out of those offenses, and there are many, many, many listed in this template, but just, you know, tons of offenses from every category. And this is how I recognize Secret Service criminality, because it transcends anything that a criminal could do or would be bothered to do, quite frankly. So there's government targeting behind that, okay? So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I would like to show you the affidavit template. Let me just share my screen. This is the first step of finding out how the hell to go about filling it out, okay? So let me share my screen, and I hope it works just the same. Yep. So you go to the website stop007.org, which is my website, so stop007.org, and you scroll down. You've got lots of material down here, but you just have to scroll down to news, and the very first link is the new and final affidavit form. Okay, it's out with the explanatory notes. It came out at the end of November 2018, and what you will see here is an introductory video talking you through the entire process, okay, everything you need to know. And it's a video that is, let me remind myself, it's 2.5 hours long. And if that's too much, you have an index. If you scroll down, you've got the same video again, and you've got a detailed contents listing where you have the particular timestamp here, and you can jump straight to this timestamp if you have a question about a particular section. Okay, so there's already loads of material out there that you can use to fill out this affidavit template. Everything you need to know is in this, okay? But then there's one thing that I haven't included, which is the software that you need to download and view the template, which is OpenOffice, okay? And this is what I'm going to do today. And I'm going to start walking you through filling out the affidavit template as well. If you like, we're going to start doing it together so that you have a good idea of what to do, and you get over, you know, the initial intimidation of getting started, okay? So getting started with most big tasks is the hardest thing, and once you got started, it's just a walk in the park usually. Okay, so let's start from the top of this website. Okay, so here the affidavit collection is launched. You now understand what this video is, the introductory video. And then here is the purpose of the affidavit that's outlined. And it also states that I've compiled this affidavit myself as part of work conducted for the Joint Investigation Team. For those of you who don't know, the Joint Investigation Team here is a group that I founded in at the start of 2017. And the members of the JIT, the Joint Investigation Team, are listed down here. And these were the original founding members. It included the NSA whistleblower Karen Melton Stewart, Dr. Millicent Black, and Ramola Darmaraj, and Melanie Richard. Okay, and this group was working flat out for a year and a half, and we collected a lot of information about targeting and who the criminals are. We listened to a lot of victims report their crimes and so on. Okay, I'm keep getting these messages. Sorry about that. So the messages people post. So I apologize. But anyway, so we worked for a year and a half, and we collected, the forensic information on the crimes that are being committed. And by talking to a lot of victims, I collected all the many offenses. Okay, so if you listen to the typical victim report, it's so vast, it's mind-boggling. So typically what victims would do when you start talking to them, and this is actually something that I encourage a lot of the victims to avoid, is a kind of gushing. Okay, I have written gushing emails listing all the crimes because they're so freaking unbelievable and incredible. Okay, and I have gushed for hours and hours to my family until they just gave the hell in, and I realized that targeting is a real thing. Okay, so bashing people over the head with it repeatedly is actually a good thing in the long run, because they will have heard it so many times, eventually they give in. Okay, and they're like, okay, we accept that these crimes are happening. So but on average, when you're talking to public officials, gushing is not a good thing, because you are in a sense explaining the crimes as you experience them. And when you have investigators and honest police officers who would actually want to investigate these crimes, if such a thing still exists today, and honest judges, they'll be just overwhelmed. They'll be like, whoa, I've never had anything like that in my life. I don't even know, where it starts and where it ends, and all this. Okay, so the typical victim would say, yes, and I've been assaulted with these electromagnetic weapons, and they keep coming into my home, and they are raping me, and it goes on and on and on, literally for 4 hours, pulling out examples of what they did in break-ins and how they're doing the car stalking and so on. So while that's all true, and I totally understand, and I'm not criticizing any victim, because that's what I did and what how I try to communicate it, it's actually, in many respects, overwhelming for the vast majority of people who haven't experienced it. And if you think back, you are summarizing offenses that have been done to you every single day for maybe several years, and you just dump it on somebody like that. So it just blows their mind, and they're blocked, and they think, ooh, this is so unusual, I've never heard about it, oh, I'm not comfortable talking about it, or I'm not really comfortable with you, and so on. So they try to they typically project their discomfort with the criminality you're talking about onto you. And this is something you don't really want, because the criminality has nothing to do with you. It is criminals doing it who are psychopathic. You're not psychopathic. You're just telling people what these nut jobs have done to you. Okay, so the way around that, and the way to communicate with police officers, and frankly, I've given up on most of them, so I only talk to judges because they've got a higher standard of education, is that you kind of group it into set offenses that they can recognize in their book of criminal offenses. So instead of going through every single housebreaking and the particular details of the gaslighting and why you can prove that it's gaslighting and not a break-in, and why you haven't gone mad, you just say, well, there was a repeated housebreaking, because housebreaking is the legal term that's used for it. Okay, so you group it into housebreaking, and it's not, you can prove that it's not standard housebreaking because they haven't stolen anything of value. Typically, they just rearrange minor stuff. And that falls into the category of psychological terrorism. And we already know that the secret services do it because they did it in East Germany, okay, in the GDR, in the German Democratic Republic, but simultaneously, the FBI did it in America. Simultaneously. the same shit, the same template. That already, by the way, tells you that there's always been a connection between the FBI and the Russians having taken over East Germany and using East German secret services to do this Zersetzungs program, as it was called in East Germany back in the day. Okay, so that already tells you somehow they were reading from the same book, right? Okay, but you just compartmentalize it into housebreaking, into gaslighting, and that somebody, a group of people, executed this Zersetzung, which means disintegration in German, this Zersetzungs program on you. And then it's much easier to understand, okay? So you take many, many offenses and you start sorting them. Okay, if people break into a house and don't just rearrange the sofa or the cutlery in your drawers, but actually damage something, what they like to do is cut up clothes. With women, especially, you know, knickers, they love to cut up the bit between the legs, or they love to cut up bras and stuff like that because they're bloody sex perverts. That's why. But then you call it vandalism. So somebody committed housebreaking and vandalism to harass you and to cause psychological terrorism, okay? So you start compartmentalizing it like that, okay? But there are many, many, many offenses, and in the end, it took me about a year to just work on this affidavit template, go through all the many victims' reports that I've received and try to incorporate everything that victims have reported, okay? And what you see in this affidavit template, and this is why it's so long, is because it's trying to encompass everything, okay? Everything. And the idea is that once, so the entire point of the affidavit is that we all fill out and we all, you know, tick what applies to us. And what the judge should see immediately is that within one affidavit template, it is statistically impossible to suffer so many fundamentally different crimes all in one lifetime just by coincidence, okay? It's physically impossible to suffer, you know, housebreaking and car breaking and dangerous driving and directed energy weapon assaults and rape and a million other things just for one person, just by pure chance. Okay, so what it means is that looking at individual cases, you can already tell that there's a huge, massive program behind this. And should you doubt an individual person, you can take several of these affidavits, put them side by side, and show to a judge that they are basically all reporting the same type and egregious number of fundamentally different crimes. In other words, all these people, if you compare them horizontally, each offense, and they all suffered them, you can prove that all these people are part of a program, okay? The very same program. So this is the fundamental idea behind this affidavit template, okay? So that's why we are doing it in the way that we are doing it. So now let's get started with filling this out, okay? So what I would like you to show you first is how to navigate that page, okay? So it is very, very important that you realize that the very first link, which is here under the purpose of the affidavit, okay? So we just scroll down. This was the introductory video, and the first paragraph is the purpose of the affidavit. This first link is PDF. This one is for viewing only. It's not for filling it out. Understand that, please. I will not accept any affidavits filled out in PDF format. I also do not really want to accept any affidavits printed off, filled out by hand, scanned back in, sent to me in many, many parts because the files get too large to send in one go. Not really. I absolutely don't want to do that. What I really want you to do is scroll down, okay? And here it says it, everything you need to know in this red box that you should download OpenOffice. And what you should do is you should download this version, which is this middle bit, okay, which says to be filled out with OpenOffice. And all the other ones are clearly labeled as the explanatory notes, which are the instructions for the survey. And down here is the PDF version for viewing only, okay, not for filling out. So you want to download this bit here, okay? So you want to download really this one, the explanatory notes, to first of all familiarize yourself what should be done. You can print off the PDF if you want to have a quick look through this, Okay, maybe you want to print it off and start filling it out on paper before you do it properly. Okay, but really, at the end of the day, you have to fill out this one here in the middle. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to say is the explanatory notes are very long, but that's because I had to include everything in writing, so that I can prove between now and forever what exactly the affidavit was for, how I drew it up, what I drew it up for, what the remit is, and how it should be filled out. Okay, so everything you need to know is actually inside the explanatory notes. It's in writing, but because many people don't read and need to have their shoelaces tied, I need to keep making videos, okay? And that's okay, because you're targeted and your life is very hard and you need extra assistance, so that's fine, okay? That's why I'm making these videos. It's totally okay. But I want you to know that you do not need these videos. You can get started already without it. And I really encourage you to get going on your own as well. Have the courage and just, start filling it out. But anyway, okay, so now the other thing I want to draw your attention to is when you download this middle bit, do not ever, ever, ever fill it out in Microsoft Word, because you will screw up the formatting and it will look shit forever. So please don't. The reason why I had to pick OpenOffice is because it's a free software. So absolutely everybody on the planet, even those who don't have much money, can fill it out. Now, what you need to know is that OpenOffice, I think there's one version that you can use on an Android phone, but honestly, by the time you get to filling out affidavits, you just can't be working on your phone, right? I understand that especially the people in the United States, they're kind of mollycoddled, and, your entire shops and government services are set up that you can use them just from your phone. But honestly, by the time you're dealing with court cases, you need to get yourself a laptop. You can get yourself the absolute cheapest laptop. You can even get yourself the absolute cheapest laptop secondhand, and it still will be perfectly adequate for what you have to do. Okay, it doesn't require much processing power, so you can get yourself a $50 laptop or even cheaper, and it will be fine. Okay, but I encourage you strongly that if you are a victim, you have to take at some point administrative action, court action, and honestly, you have to get yourself a laptop. You will not be able to fill out everything you need to be doing, or it will absolutely not be comfortable on just a little phone or even a tablet. It will become the biggest headache ever, okay? You want to have a laptop that is kind of big enough that you can see the screen comfortably, that maybe you can have two documents open next to each other comfortably, and that you can type on the keyboard, well lit and comfortably. You do not want these digital keyboards that you can find on a tablet, and you most certainly don't want the micro keyboards that you can find on a phone, okay? So it is very, very important, and understand that filling out the affidavit will not be it, okay? The affidavit alone is an enabler, but it will not be the last thing you have to do to stop your targeting, I'm afraid, okay? And the reason why, it has nothing to do with me, so don't blame me, please. The reason why it will not be enough is because it's a genocide program. They actually, honestly, they actually try to kill you. And what they want to do if you're being targeted is kill you and your family and your pets and your friends and everybody who's ever known you and cares about you. That is the freaking truth about this, okay? So while I try to make it as easy as possible, it is not that easy to stop a global genocide, right? Just me, myself, and I alone with just paper, okay? It is kind of possible if many, many people back me up and go in there and support me and fill out the affidavit and start hammering the courts and start hammering the police stations and really go aggressively and go, what the hell is this? Why can't we use our own countries anymore because of this organized crime? Then it works, okay? So ironically, the more people take these small steps to fill out the affidavit, the easier and the more effective it will be for all of us. So this is why I very, very much encourage you to do that, okay? And when you fill out the affidavit, you don't just have to send it to me. You can keep it yourself and you can share it with friends who are targeted or with a group you know in your country that is targeted. You can still use the affidavits that are submitted to me and anonymously published on my website to corroborate your own court case. You can still do that, okay? And to show you what those affidavits are like, I would like to share my screen and go back to my website, because you can download those affidavits already. So let me share my screen. So if you want to find out what the affidavits look like that have already been completed, you go to my website, stop007.org, you scroll down and use the second link, which is first victim affidavit submitted. To date, today on the 4th of June 2019, there are already 15 affidavits, 7 men, 8 women, 8 from the US, 2 from Canada, 2 from the UK, 1 from Belgium, 1 from Russia, and 1 from Japan. Okay, so they're all down here and you can download them and have a look. Okay, so that's what you need to do. But now let's fill out one ourselves. So let's go back to this website where the affidavit template is. Okay, so you understand that this one is just a PDF version, that you have to download the OpenOffice version, but it also says, please download OpenOffice before you start filling out the survey. Okay, do not fill out the survey in Microsoft Word, because as the formatting will be corrupted. Do not fill out the PDF version posted here, as there's no way to process print copies. And then follow the instructions in the explanatory notes to fill it out and submit it. Okay, easy enough. So you just click on this link, OpenOffice, and it takes you to the OpenOffice page, and then you find download, which is here. And I'll now show you how ridiculously easy it is to download this thing. You select your operating system, which is Windows, okay? But you can see that there's many others. There's Linux, several versions of Linux, 64-bit and 32-bit, and for different software packages. There is the OS, I think this is Mac OS, right? So you have Windows, Linux, and Mac. So you can download this for any platform that you want. And you can select the English, the version of English. I actually recommend you go for the British English, because I have filled it out in British English. And if you use the US version, some of the words will be underlined in red, because I used British spelling and not US spelling. Okay. Now, the version number you just leave as it is. The newest one currently is 4.1.6. That is fine. And then you press download the full installation. Okay, that's what it looks like. And it says your download will start shortly in 1 second, 0 seconds. And then poof, you could see that this download started here. Okay. So I seem to have a slow connection at the moment. Maybe that's because I'm streaming, but downloading it should be actually much quicker with depending on what connection you have, but it only takes a couple of seconds. So you just sit here and you wait for this little blue circle to just complete the blue line to complete the circle. And you can see the progress of the download here in this Google Chrome field as well, and Firefox works very similar. Okay, so now it's downloaded. Thank you for downloading Apache OpenOffice, and here it is. Okay, so now I can click on this, and I hope the install works fine. Oops, it disappeared. Now, if it disappears, okay, my security virus scanner just scanned it. I think it's opening now. Okay, and I hope you can still see it. It just asked me if I want to allow it to make changes. I hope it didn't, cut the broadcast and the screen share. And in a moment, okay, you can actually close this down, because this should, the downloading process should have started, and the install process should start now. Hang on, why is it not starting? Okay, so let me just go to downloads in case. Oh, here it is. Okay, it was just a bit slow. So this is the screen that you will see. Okay, welcome to OpenOffice. You just click next, and then you just press install. And then you wait. And it just does it. And then you wait a bit more. You can get yourself a cup of tea in this time. And depending on your operating system, this can literally just take the blink of an eye. Okay, it's just downloading miscellaneous things. Okay, did I just press this twice by accident? Okay, I think this is fine. You just press OK, go for the complete download, just press install. Just wait a bit longer. So at every stage, I clicked through very, very fast, but the default settings are fine for, for most people. So you don't have to change anything, and you just click next, next, next. Okay, 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 fine. But you can, of course, take your time and just read it in more detail. But as you can see, everything is just click, 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 and the software does it by itself. Now, I have installed OpenOffice many times. I've also installed it on Linux, and it just works fine without any problems whatsoever. And OpenOffice is by now just as mainstream as Microsoft Word. Okay, so you just saw here this shortcut appear. And that's the shortcut to the software. Okay, and that's it. The installation wizard completed. And it says the installation wizard has successfully installed OpenOffice 4.1.6. Click to finish to exit the wizard. So you just click finish, and that's it. And you have OpenOffice. You have a shortcut here, but also on Windows, you can scroll down here to O, as in OpenOffice, and then you'll find here OpenOffice. So you expand this on the little arrow, and you can see all the different types of software. OpenOffice Writer is like Microsoft Word. OpenOffice Impress is like PowerPoint. And OpenOffice Draw is like this, graphics program. I think Microsoft has a drawing program as well. OpenOffice Calc is like Excel, and Base is a database program. Okay. And the only thing you need is OpenOffice Write. But you can, of course, use all of the others, right, as well. But this is already installed. Now, you don't even have to open it, okay? If you want to open it, it's very easy. Let me just scroll back down again. Oops. Wowie. Okay, I can show you what it looks like, and then you will see it looks just like Microsoft Word. So let's just open this, OpenOffice Writer. Okay, this is the first time you set it up. You just click next. You don't even have to give your name. I never do. You open this, and that's it. And here you have it. Okay, here is your page, and you can just start typing like this. And you have all the controls up here. And when you're finished writing your text, you've got a little PDF button here that you can convert it into PDF. And you've got all the other settings as you would have in Microsoft Word. So it is totally easy. Okay. Now we've got OpenOffice. Let's close this. I don't need to save the changes. And now let's go back to where were we? So this was the download of OpenOffice. We don't need that. Where is the website? Ah, there. Okay, sorry. I have to make a new tab. Okay, here's the chat. Okay, so here we are. Now, let's go back to the website, to my website here. Stop 007. Let's go back there. And now let's start filling out the affidavit. So you go here, you follow the first link. You have downloaded OpenOffice. You don't have to do anything else. You skip the first link. And now you go down here and you download the second link. And that means you just click on it and it downloads immediately. It's down here. And this is the JIT survey in the final version. You click on it and it should open. It should ask you, you know, here you can see the message. Maybe it's a bit better if I close these. Damn, where did this go? Where was the window? It asks me where to open it. Okay, sorry. If this happens to you and the window disappears, you go to downloads. Here's the JIT survey final. You click on it again. And this was the message. It asks, sorry, this is in German, but it says, how do you want to open the file? Do you want to use OpenOffice Writer? And that's correct. You want to do this. And then you want to tick that you always want to open these ODT files, so OpenOffice files with OpenOffice Writer. So you select that, click on OK. It takes a bit of time because this document is so big, and there it is. Ta-da! So you now have it here in OpenOffice. You can close that window. And what you do when you start filling it out is that you start writing your name. So I would, you know, go here, you delete everything, including the square brackets, okay? The square brackets are just to highlight that something was entered there. So I would say affidavit of Catherine Horton. And then you can pick a document authentication code. Now, please do not pick the number that I'm picking here. Pick something else. But I'm just going to pick one, oops, sorry, not like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So pick something absolutely random and maybe make sure that nobody has picked this number already before you by going to the, you know, the affidavits that have already been filled out and submitted. And the idea of this document authentication code is that once you selected an, once you selected a number, you write the very same number in the footer down here. Okay, this is the 8-digit authentication code. So again, you click here, you download everything, including the square brackets, and then you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's my document authentication number. And the idea is that as soon as you write it here, you have selected this to recognize your own document. When you write it in the footer, you will see that when you scroll down, you will find it in every single footer. Sorry. Oh, let me scroll slowly. Maybe like this. So here you will find the number appear on the next page. It appears down there in the footer and the page after that. And the reason for this document authentication code is that I will upload the affidavit anonymously, and you will be the only person to, well, apart from me, because you submitted this affidavit to me, but you and I will be the only people who know that that particular number is your affidavit, okay? Because I will strip, when I upload this, I will anonymize your affidavit, and I will strip the first pages identifying you, and the last page, the very, very last page here, is the signed oath. It will contain your signature authenticating this. This is the signed statement of truth here. So it will have your signature, but also the person entitled to administer oaths will sign it as well down here. Okay, and it will have your name. But because it identifies you, I will strip this page. Okay, and you will see that none of the affidavits I have uploaded have any personal information on them. They are completely anonymous. Okay, so that's the idea. However, I do need a signed statement of truth, and your affidavit has to be by name because the court case that I'm, filing, if I file an affidavit in support of my court case to prove to the judge that targeting is happening, he needs to know that it's real people testifying. And I didn't just get a group of my friends, to get together and just fill something out just to please me, So this is why it has to be by name. So every court needs to identify the witness who is testifying. So, but let's go back to the beginning. So you will fill your name here, okay? You will choose a document authentication code like that of your own choosing. Please do not pick birthdays or special days, okay? Because then it will be, again, you can be identified. Pick something that really doesn't, is nothing special, nothing related to you, but just remember the number, okay? So just keep that in mind. And then you write it here in the footer as well. And by writing it once on the first page, the footer automatically updates it on all 94 pages. Now, the next section to fill out is here. You also write your full name here. Again, remove the square brackets. So I will write I, Catherine Horton, off. And now you have to write your address, your full address. Again, remove the square brackets. Off Langacher Straße 6 in 8103 Unter Engstringen, Switzerland. Now, this is my street number, the postcode, the town, and the country. So because this is an international survey, you also have to state the country, okay? So write the postal address that, you know, first of all, that is on your identification document, like your driver's license or your passport. And so that has to be your registered address as it appears in your photo ID. Okay, so just write that here, because that's how you identify yourself. Now, here, you need to include an ID photo. And God, I don't have one to hand, but let's see if I can quickly get one. Because I have my my photograph in many places. If I go to, so I've got, you can follow me on Gab, and I think on Gab I might have a photo. So I just want you to do the following: get a digital photo of yourself. Okay, some sort of okay, here maybe I can I pull this image? Perfect. Okay, so I will save this image, and this will be Catherine Horton. So just get a digital image of yourself, okay, from anywhere. Maybe you have one on your computer. And then what you do is, here's where you want to put the image. You first of all, I would recommend you delete this text, because it makes it easier to drag and drop the image. The text will not be in the way. And then the image I have downloaded is here under downloads. So I will just grab the image and drag and drop it in there. Boom, that's it. That's all you need to do. And then you can, you know, align it a bit like that, and make sure the box doesn't go over the page, and cover the footer like so. Hang on. Sorry. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm trying to adjust this. Okay, I've just pressed the arrow up, and this entire box shifted back up into its place. Okay, so this is now how the first page looks. So the affidavit identifies me. Okay, so you've got your name on the top, you've got the document authentication code, you've got your name and address down here. You also have the details of what this affidavit will be used for. You also confirm your identity. You say this image here is exactly you. And the image should be a clear, you know, passport style image. It doesn't have to be a passport image. But ideally, it looks very, very similar to the way you appear on your photo ID. Okay, so it has to be clear that this affidavit has been filled out by the person whose photo ID has been supplied. Okay, now once you've gotten here, which as you saw were just a few clicks, that is literally the hardest thing you need to do. Okay, everything else will be just super easy. Now this will be here, the start of the public part of the affidavit. Okay, this you will fill out last. That is the final cross-check here that shows the entire, this is the index to the entire document, and it shows how these numbers, these are the sections, okay? And it shows you everything that has been included here, okay? So we have intrusive surveillance here, neighborhood terror in section 4, right? You've got stalking and street theater outdoors here. You've got directed energy weapon attacks here, but a million other things as well, like, you know, sexual assault and sabotage of one's private sex life or dating, or your marriage and partnership, or your children are being stalked, or you have voice to skull, which is down here, and a million other things, also including financial stuff like financial and administrative terror. Administrative terror is if they bring, for example, fraudulent charges against you or fraudulent administrative procedures. The subversion of your business and your employment, or, you know, any disruption to your inheritance or your assets and your property and so on. So as you can see, it contains a million things, and every section has just dozens of subsections with detailed crimes. Okay, so this is the index, if you like. And when you are finished, you will tick every single section here as affected that applies to you. Don't tick all the boxes, just the ones that apply to you. And then at the end, you go through every section again carefully. And when you check that the information in every section is correct, you put a second tick here in the checkbox. Okay, so as I said, you don't fill out the section first, you fill it out last, very, very last. Okay, but just to go through, let's say you're the victim of gang stalking. So you will fill out the section 9 in this document. And because this section applies to you, you put an X here. And please use capital X, because small x's are kind of easy to miss. So put a capital X that this section applies to you. And that section, if I can show you, I'll just skip ahead a bit, okay? The section on stalking is section 9, which starts here, stalking and street theater. And it has all these many, 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 many sections, okay? All the different types of stalking, vehicle stalking, and a million other things, right? Now, fill this out, and then what you do is you come back to the first, the index, and then you say stalking and street theater applies to you. Then you fill out the entire affidavit, and when you're finished, before submitting it, you check every section, and then those sections that apply to you, you mark them as checked when you're finished, okay? Now, let's go down. This is the very first section that that actually starts as the main affidavit. And I've just seen, this might be a problem with people in Germany or German-speaking countries. I realized that this was actually meant to be section 1.1, but it automatically recognized it as section 1,1. And that's because of the language setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Tools, Language. It's not there. So let's go down to Options. And then here, Language Settings, Languages. Okay, and it says the default is English, but the local setting, the default is German for Germany. And that's because I think my computer, I bought it from Germany, so there's some hardware setting that recognizes it as German. But if you just set this to be English, UK, and default languages for the document is again English, UK, like so, and save. Hang on, why did it not change the comma? Hang on, let me do it again. Options. Same as the local decimal separator key. Okay, that should be it. It should be a dot. Okay. Now, what if I have to open this again? Let me just see if I can turn these. If it appears with comma, it's not a big deal. It's not going to change anything, but it just disturbs my eye a bit. So let me just, if anything is strange, you just save the file, close it, and open it again. Okay, so let's just open the file again. This is the JIT survey. And of course, you don't have to fill it out in one setting. You can just save everything you've written. Okay. Okay, so here you can see everything that I've written previously is still there. My name and my address, my photograph is there. And let's scroll down. Yes, here it is. So now there's a dot separator. So it's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. Okay, I feel so much better. That's great. Anyway, let's start filling this out. Okay, so you say your age bracket. And as you know, I am in my early 20s. Okay, obviously not, but hey. But you just fill it in, and I don't need your precise age. All this is for is to be able to show the court that people of all ages are being targeted. Okay, if this were an anti-terrorist program, then it would mostly be young men in their early 20s because that's the military age, okay? But it's not, okay? They have pensioners being targeted, and, you know, very young women, and women in their 60s and 70s and 80s and so on. And when we write our age bracket, I hope that this is just, you know, anonymous enough. I don't need the precise number, but just roughly the decade, okay, for this purpose. And then you go through and you start filling it out. So I'm obviously female, and remember, use capital X. Well, my marriage has been broken up, so I am single. I have no children, and so on. Disabilities, not yet, but they're working on it. And there's also section disability due to targeting. And these are permanent disabilities. And unfortunately, there are victims who have been given disabilities, okay? But here, it's not to pry into your private affairs. Remember that this is anonymous, okay? It's to show that targeting can result in disabilities because people are being damaged that hard, okay? So in my case, I don't have anything permanent, although they do disable me for days on end. Now, ethnicity, again, this is nothing private. And I should say that if there's anything that you really, really don't want to talk about or don't want to testify about, that's okay. That is perfectly fine. The only thing I need is really your name and address, because I need that as an affidavit to validate it as an affidavit. Unfortunately, we all have to stand up for what we testify about, right? And we are testifying about horrific crimes. So when we make such accusations, you know, about somebody committing genocide and crimes against humanity, we have to put our name to it, because otherwise the courts don't take us seriously. But beyond that, at any point, if you don't want to testify about something, you don't fill out the section. I will not make any assumptions, or anybody reading this. It will just mean that that section, there's just no comment, no information available on that. It doesn't mean yes or no either way, okay? That's all I want you to know. So in my case, my ethnicity is no big secret. I'm white. My nationality is German. The year my targeting started, I actually thought it was in the year 2011, but then I remembered all the shenanigans and I traced back my remote neural monitoring to the year 2000, which is when I went to Oxford as an undergraduate. So this is how you fill it out. And then, has your targeting stopped since it started? Well, in my case, no. And actually, in most people's cases, it hasn't stopped. Have you been targeted in several countries? I have. And what is the country that the targeting started in? In my case, it was the United Kingdom. And in what countries have you been targeted? And now I will show you how these fields, if you have many, many countries like I have, this field will just expand by itself as you're typing, okay? And I have placed enough white space at the bottom down here to allow you to fill in all the countries where you were attacked. So in my case, it's like Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Hungary, Romania, Belgium, Netherlands, Croatia. Did I miss anything? Oh, yes, I did. France, Spain. I have been assaulted in every single one of these, and this little red wiggly line means it's a spelling mistake. So it's like that. So these are all the countries, and you could see I could fit them all in. So you just keep typing and it just fills it in. Now, this is a very important section. It's about, you know, giving a judge a feeling that it's not just us being targeted, you know, as the case may be, but there might be many more victims who are maybe don't have the time to investigate. They don't know what's happening. But if you have evidence to say that your spouse or your partner is a victim, just please write it down. Now, in my case, my husband was a victim. I saw him, and I woke up and I heard him groan in pain, and his head was being beamed by a microwave beam. So I can definitely say that. I don't have children, so I don't have this, but my parents have been targeted, so I can say that. Other relatives who have been targeted, yes, I have evidence for that. Friends, yes, I have evidence for that as well. Community members, now it depends on what your community is. Your community could be, for example, your local community, okay? That could be the local area, let's say the people on your street, okay? Or the people in your quarter inside the town where you live. Or it could also be, if you're a member of the gay community, that other people in the gay community who you are in contact with are also being targeted. So it could also be a social community, not just your geographic community, okay? And what I'm trying to get at with this question here in the survey is to say that, well, we don't just have information about immediate spouse and child and immediate family and immediate close friends. We also have information on people who we're maybe not friends with directly. We don't really know them very well, but maybe they have actually told us that they are being targeted. So, for example, in my case, I could take, for example, the academic community. And while I was at Oxford, I certainly heard how other people were being targeted. And at the time, I didn't understand this program. I didn't really understand what they were saying to me, but it has come back to me. And I was like, holy cow, they were actually talking about being gang stalked and being terrorized. And I heard the report of an academic fleeing the house regularly because of stalking and weird people breaking into the house, and so on. But actually, I've got many other, communities as such that I'm a member of. I could also take, for example, the community of these investigators, right, that I founded. For example, Karen Melton Stewart, who's investigating these crimes, and is she targeted? Oh, hell yes. Other investigators who are not directly investigating Secret Service criminality, are they targeted? Oh, hell yes. So all I'm trying to say is I have information about other people who I know, who have worked with, who have told me that yes, they are also victims. So I can take that. Now, this one here is pets and livestock. And it just so happens that, pets are being targeted all the time. Now, I say you should tick this if you have a good reason that you can explain to a judge to say that your pet is being targeted. For example, one victim noticed that her cat was very uncomfortable and started behaving oddly when she was being targeted. She also found out how that cat went and quite unusually sat and curled up in the bathroom sink every time she was being targeted. Now, why would a cat curl up in the bathroom sink? Well, number one, it's cold. So if you're being microwaved and your skin is being burnt, you would cool down your skin. But also the density of the porcelain can actually give you some protection. So if an animal curls up flat and is under the rim of the porcelain sink, and the microwave is coming horizontally from a neighbor, an animal can find itself actually quite a lot of protection hiding in the sink. Actually, I was in my bathtub. My bathtub isn't porcelain, but actually metal. And I curled up in my bathtub and I slept many nights in my bathtub because of targeting. So these are examples. But of course, your pets could have odd injuries. There are pets that refuse to walk past a certain house where their owners feel that they're being microwaved from, etc., etc. Now, I actually do have evidence of pets being targeted. Oops, sorry. If you get this message of read-only content, you're in the wrong field. So you can't change the text that I have written. You can only put, oops, sorry. This is messages on YouTube. You can only put, these boxes. You can only write text in these boxes. So if you have evidence of that, you can take that. And you should not imitate what I'm writing. You should write down what your case involves, okay? But I just want to explain to you how to fill this out. So the first section should be an absolute no-brainer, okay? Now, the second section is classical crime. And what I mean by that is here I'm asking about those types of crimes that you might have become a victim of that every judge anywhere in the world would recognize and understand, okay? So for many judges, crimes related to directed energy weapons, implants, nanotech, and neurotech are really new ground. But every judge anywhere in the world should understand theft, burglary, vandalism, physical attacks, rape or attempted rape, kidnapping or attempted kidnap, human trafficking, including attempted organ theft, attempted murder, or other incidents of classical crime. And to have a distinction between intel criminality, okay, I am saying specifically that in the case of vandalism, do not tick the one where, you know, intel breaks into your home and cuts up your clothes, even though it is vandalism. But the reason why I shouldn't include it here is because further down, there's a housebreaking section where you have ample of opportunity to fill that out in detail. So here, I'm just talking about general vandalism, which could be something like a bunch of teenagers spray painting your car or spray painting that at the wall of your house, okay? Something that could be related to intel or could not be, okay? Housebreaking, on the other hand, with vandalism, Stasi style, is definitely intel, okay? So what I'm trying to give judges a feel for is, you know, what is the fraction of classical crime that these victims suffer, and what is the fraction of absolutely out there novel crime that most people haven't heard of, okay? So here, for example, with rape and attempted rape, I do not mean electronic. There's a special section for electronic rape. I just mean literally a guy who comes up to you, or, you know, a woman for that matter, if it ever happens outside, you know, films involving Kim Basinger and you know, Michael Douglas. But anyway, so, you know, somebody actually pinning you against the wall, for example, and that type of rape, you know. So please fill this out here. And again, attempted murder is non-covert. So here, I do not mean you being shot at with directed energy weapons. I actually mean somebody coming at you with a knife or trying to strangulate you, you know. However, what you can note there is attempted murder, somebody trying to run you off the road. That's not covert. That's actually, you know, trying to ram you off the road sort of stuff, okay? So fill that out, and the only thing you have to keep in mind is please exclude anything to do with implants, so rape not with implants, nanotech, and directed energy weapons. So murder, attempted murder rather, not with directed energy weapons. That comes in a later section. Now, in this case, I think, well, I did have theft. Burglary didn't. Attempted rape, I did suffer that at uni. Violence, thankfully not. Human trafficking, organ theft, I think not. Well, attempted murder, most absolutely, definitely, with cars. Okay, so this is what it looks like for me, okay? So let's go to the next section. Now, I'm going through this up to here because this is a section that is fundamentally different. It's now switched to the pattern that the rest of the affidavit is written in. And here, this is the standard setup. So what I want you to do is go through every single offense. This is the section on intrusive surveillance. Surveillance, rather. Sorry, I sometimes say surveillance, and I mean to say surveillance. And here, what I would like you to do is write down the start in month and year format. So, for example, covert surveillance, in my case, started in October 2000. So you write it month hyphen year. And at the time, the covert surveillance, I'm pretty sure, was continuous. And do I have evidence for that? Unfortunately, I do not, because the people started stalking me when I became an undergraduate at Oxford. At the time, I didn't have a mobile phone, and I didn't have a camera on me for that reason, and I didn't collect any evidence. All I have is my oral testimony. I can describe the people, but I don't have any evidence. So I do not tick the evidence box. So I just keep going, and I ask you to also write down the things that you cannot prove because you don't have evidence. That is okay. The entire affidavit template is so that we collect those things we can prove and those things we cannot prove because we couldn't collect evidence or didn't or whatever. But by combining many affidavits, I also want to be able to argue to a judge those crimes that are maybe hard to prove or maybe even impossible to prove, right? Like remote neural monitoring, okay? If you find your chips on your head, you can, infer that remote neural monitoring has been happening, because what else would somebody put chips on your head for, right? But with weird stuff like they use your eye implants to show you aliens, well, you could find the eye implants, but you can't really reconstruct what the intel agencies broadcast to your eye chips. But nevertheless, it's important evidence, even if you cannot prove it, because by all of us testifying, before a judge, we can actually say this is something that the intelligence agencies do all the time, And with this, we can just disable all these claims that people who say they saw aliens are mad. And we will get the world to understand that if you hear a report like that, your first question has to be, has this person any eye implants? And has somebody taken a UV torch and just looked at the eyes, at this person's eyes under UV light, and do their pupils light up bright green, for example? If yes, it's an eye implant, and then it's just up to the intel agencies what they're broadcasting. Okay, so let's keep going for a bit longer. Now, overt surveillance, in my case, I can pin that down exactly, started in November 2011. That most certainly was continuous. Do I have evidence for that? Yes, I do, because I did record some gang stalking and covert harassment. Now, the bugging and the surveillance of my home started pretty much then and there, because I had a guy wait for me outside my home, so they knew when I was leaving the home. And then what you can do is you can highlight this date, and if it's the same for many offenses, you press Control-C for copy, and then you can put in the same date many times over, and you don't have to retype it. So you just go one down, you press Control-V, and then it's in there. So with surveillance, I can tell you that it's it's typically continuous, because no one does surveillance just for between 9 and 5, right? Because you could just bugger off the rest of the time. So in the surveillance, sorry, you can press click continuous all the time. Now, I don't really have do I have yes, I do have evidence of the surveillance of my home. I don't have direct evidence of the surveillance of my office. And no, actually I do, because these guys were also waiting outside my office and knew when I was leaving my office, so they must have been monitoring me inside. Now, the bugging and surveillance of my car, you can write either the date the surveillance started, or you can write the date when you noticed it, okay? And if you don't have information on it, for example, you never consulted a lawyer, you don't really know, right? The surveillance of your legal advice, of your meeting with your lawyer, doesn't apply to you. You just leave the section blank, okay? And you just keep going like this. So you always write month and year when it started. You write the frequency, and please, with events that maybe that cannot happen continuously, just occasionally. For example, I did have this instance where strangers commented on my sex life. So every single time my husband and I were intimate with each other, next time I left the house, some guy I've never seen before would shout "sex machine" at me. So once it kept happening, I was like, okay, well, it looks like they are using indoor surveillance to spy on my sex life, which is terribly unpleasant and massively off-pissing. But anyway, in that case, that happened in, I think it was in Munich, and we moved to Munich in 2013, and I think that's when it started. So I think it was 2013 or 2014, I have to check, because it's so long ago. Let's say 2014. If you don't know the exact months, just write the year. That's okay as well, okay? You don't have to write everything down to a month if it's, if you don't remember. Now, the commentary, I can't really tick continuous here, because that would mean that somebody continuously followed you around 24/7 and kept commenting on your sex life, right? So obviously it just happened a few times. And the way you mark that frequency is explained up here. There are things, so the first column is for things that happen continuously. That's this one here. Okay. Then the next one is things that happen hourly. That's this one here. Daily, weekly, monthly, or it occurred n times. So nx stands for n times. Now, the commentary on my sex life happened n times. To be honest, I would have to go back and remember it, because sometimes people would brush past me and just say it, and I wouldn't even realize they were talking to me. The echo of Sex Machine would be just in my head as they brushed past, and I was wondering, did they say that to me? Did they really say that? And so on. But it happened something like 4 or 5 times. So you could write 4, just say what is most likely. Was it 4 or 5? It doesn't really ultimately matter. But if it only happened one time, you've got the choice of either writing 1 or you just write X. If you write X, it means once. Okay. If it happened more than once, you just write 2 or 3 or 4 or 15 or however many often. Okay. And again, in this case, it happened 4 times. And unfortunately, I do not have evidence, because for that, I would have had to have an audio recorder on me 24/7, which I didn't at the time. And I still don't. And I don't think many people do. And this is how you go through the entire thing. Okay. So now, if you look at it, there's 30 points on surveillance alone. And if you go through this, you might think, oh my God, it's 94 pages and it's so much and I can't be bothered. But just remember that this is to save your life. Okay. And also, this is to allow you to really write down everything from potentially a lifetime of abuse to get, back at them and to get compensation. And if you think about the millions of dollars of compensation you're entitled to, well, do you think for millions of dollars you could fill out this freaking thing and put a bunch of X's and dates in there? Of course you can, right? The other thing I want to say to you is that don't fill it out in one go. Fill it out as inspired. Fill out the sections that just pop into your mind. Like suddenly you think, oh, I remember that happened. And I remember how they, literally broadcast, surveillance footage from my home publicly because, gang stalkers were commenting on this sort of stuff and so on, If something comes back to you, you just, go to the affidavit and fill it out. Okay. But I would encourage you, and I think you have to go through every single section. But, what you can do is set yourself just when you're being tortured or you're being harassed and you get very angry, that's the time to fill out this affidavit because it's something active to do. Okay. So this is what I'm doing. And I hope you guys can still see me. I'm trying to check if I'm okay, if I'm still visible. Okay. Let me just see, because I've been talking for a long time and I hope the chat can still follow. Are you guys still there? Okay, so I hope it works. Now, what I typically do, okay, which I think can benefit a lot of people, is that if you're being tortured or if you're being gang stalked and you get very, very angry, you channel anger is most of the time a good thing because it's active. Fear and depression is passive. You go in yourself, you just go small and, you cower down. That's bad because you freeze, you slow down, you should fight back. So anger is a good thing, absolutely, most of the time, bad from very extreme cases. But you have to channel your anger into something productive. So I would say when you're really pissed off, get out the affidavit and start filling it out. What you can also do is start, have print off the affidavit, have it on your side table, and every time you feel inspired, you just fill it out with a pen, but then you go back to the computer and you go page by page and you just transfer the X's and the dates. It actually doesn't take that long either. If you do it this way, that's okay too. But the final version has to be filled out digitally. Okay. That's what you should do. So now let's go back to this and let's just flick through. I'm sorry. Flick through a couple of pages. I'm not going to fill out the entire thing for you, but I just would like to show you that once you have understood how this thing works using the section surveillance here, all the other sections are pretty much the same. Okay, so let me just scroll through. So you fill it out like this and you go through absolutely everything that applies. Okay. And here, for example, this is in the section surveillance, and there's things like interference or sabotage of your sex life. This could be many things. It could be even hacking, deleting messages, or I don't know what, or your work life, right? But it could also be, of course, using surveillance to trigger your body implants to, disrupt your love life. And that's certainly what I mean here when it's interference with or sabotage of body functions. Now, that actually falls under surveillance because these are body sensors and they are monitoring your bodily functions. That's also a form of extremely and highly criminal form of surveillance. Okay, so you just fill it in, and this is the date field, and this is the frequency. So this is the first one is continuous, hourly, daily, monthly, and hang on, did I get this right? Weekly. I missed out weekly. So you have continuous, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and then occurred n times, because some events are just distinct events and they would happen just a few times, and remember, evidence, you only tick what you have evidence for, but if you don't have evidence for something, you still enter it here. Okay. Now, the other thing is here, the next section is neighbors and neighborhood, and it's exactly the same format. All the nonsense that your landlord or your neighbors maybe did, directed energy weapon attacks, right, from neighbors, that's here. Okay, so everything that involves your neighbors. And this is to prove to a judge how they are weaponizing our neighborhood. Okay, so fill that out. I don't have to read out absolutely every section. Okay, maybe I just explain this one word, tempested. This is explained in the explanatory notes. Windows that are permanently shuttered or tempested. So tempested means that there is typically a fabric behind the window glass, or maybe a type of curtain that obscures the view inside, so you can't see if there are people. Okay, and I do not mean curtains. I mean something has been put there so that these people can look out through the window and look at you, but you can't look in and see them. And this is something that is done routinely by the intelligence agencies when they are watching a house. Okay. And my American colleague, Karen Melter Stewart, informed me that the technical term for that is tempested in the US. So that's what I mean by that. Okay. And so on. Should you have any questions, please check out the explanatory notes that you should download as well. Every section is explained there. And let's just keep going. So landlords, post and delivery, and so on, anything that can happen in cafes and bars. And then you just, then you just scroll through this document, and it's very, very long, okay? But remember, it's trying to capture everything to procure you damages in court, which means money to make up for the shit that they did, okay? That's why it's so detailed. So go through and read every section. And what you can do is every time just pick out a section and just say, I'm just going to fill out this section. And if you're not very inspired, just pick a small section like post and deliveries. Can you just set 5 X's? Did anybody open your mail or your packages? Did you receive any harassment or threat mail, or harassment or threat packages? Was there any delay or cancellation of your mail? Any damage, theft, or sabotage of your mail? Any delay, damage, or theft to other types of deliveries, which could be food deliveries. It could be the delivery of your house move, your furniture. That's all deliveries, right? Was there anything odd in there? And if there was, just say when. How often did it happen? And do you have evidence, yes or no? You do not have to put the evidence here and attach it, but remember that you are filling this out under oath, okay? And the very first page has an oath, and the very last page has a statement of truth. So do not lie about having evidence or not having evidence. Just say it honestly and know that not having evidence is fair enough. It is okay, as long as you can really testify under oath that something happened. Okay? So let me just scroll through a bit faster here so you can see housebreaking down here. Stalking and street theater, vehicles and driving, swarming by stalkers and cars is down here, you know, and so on. License plates with targeted messages, like they have, you know, CIA written and shit like that. Happens all the time. Travel and abroad, did they follow you abroad with their harassment and so on, you know? And just take a section, fill it out as you're inspired, and then put it to a side, fill it out the second time. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of this window. Computers and telecommunication, was it hacked in any way? And you can see the format of filling it out is always the same. Banking, online banking, finance, insurance companies. I'm just scrolling through to give you an idea, okay? But what I actually want to get at is, sorry, it's just saving. Further down, there are a few sections that have a slightly different format, but only slightly, okay? And let's scroll down, fitness, private and family life, and so on. And just look on the right-hand side, you can see it's the same format. This is the section on directed energy weapons, section 28. Pulsed energy projectiles, everything, okay? You can see it's a long section because there's so much about directed energy weapons, and also the damage that they cause, you know, heart pains or heart arrhythmia with directed energy weapons. That is very, very common. Heart attacks with directed energy weapons. If you suffered any of these, please mark it down there. Okay, so it's all these different types of assault. Then the attack locations, where were you attacked? Were you attacked with directed energy weapons inside your house, outside your house? How often did it happen that you were attacked outside the house, and so on? Were you attacked in hospitals? You know, and. Now, there's also a section on bioweapons here, pathogens, poisons, contamination, this sort of stuff. And parasites and more gallons is here as well. Then there's covert operations. Did they break into your home? Did they implant you, and so on? There's a section on implants here and everything to do with implants. And I'm just scrolling through, and you just fill it out bit by bit, okay? So it's not, honestly, it's not a big deal. Just fill it out. Now, I'm going to go a bit faster, okay? So you've got voice to skull section here, image to skull further down. You can read it at your leisure. But what I want to show you is at the very end, hang on, there's a long section about symptoms, okay, that you experienced as part of your targeting, where you don't have to say, was it nanotech, was it use, what the hell was it? You just note down what were the odd symptoms that you suffered, okay? And you will see there's absolutely everything there, you know, that you could have possibly had. Let me scroll. There's a section on measurements, protective measures that you had to do regarding shielding, attack on pets, attacks on family and friends is in here. Curious accidents, which can be brought about by directed energy weapons and chip implants, you know, death and murder of family and friends and relevant other people, multi-generational targeting, historic childhood targeting. This would be your own childhood. The targeting of your child or children is in an earlier section, in the family section. There's also things on MK Ultra and Monarch programming, satanic ritual abuse and child abuse, right? All the stuff that I've heard about is included here. Where were you abused? Who were the abusers? Also, if you have served in the military and intelligence or law enforcement, you know, have you seen anything? Have you been made the victim of anything? This one here is about agents that, you know, have been subverting you, okay? This is not you working as an agent. This is agents annoying you. So section 54 is about agents, infiltration, and sabotage, which happens all the time. PSYOPs happen all the time. There's a section on signs and symbolism. Were there any satanic symbols or Ku Klux Klan symbols and all this sort of stuff, you know? Then were any secret societies involved in your targeting as far as you're aware? And then there are sections on set professions. So were you, for example, targeted by medical staff, and did anything happen in hospitals? Were they falsifying your medical records or anything? So you can see there's a huge section of stuff that happens in hospitals, right? And you can also be assured that anything that's listed here has been testified to by many, many victims. This is not something I just dreamt up. These are all things that I've heard victims testify about, okay? Then, of course, there's psychiatrists and psychologists, right? There's a lot of professional misconduct there, but also in school and nursery, if your children have been abused there, care homes or care homes for children, the disabled and the elderly. There's universities and research facilities that might be involved, or you might have worked at these facilities. Of course, police, law enforcement, and prisons, big section, big, big, big section. Military police and secret services. There's lots of abuse happening there. Of course, even journalists, press, and media, right? Negative, dishonest, or false reporting. Didn't we have tons of that, right? Mental health smears by journalists, press, and media, of course. Then, of course, what's also important is these telco regulators and the frequency licensing agencies who would typically license the frequencies that communicate with the chip implants. There's a section on human rights charities and typically their complete denial of help. And then official dishonesty, fraud, and sabotage that you can testify about. Government and legislature, not really helping, a lot of lack of interest. That's typically what I note down from them. Lawyers, judges, and courts, they can be corrupt as anything sometimes. There's a special section on attorney generals who actually should be going after this, but typically do not. And then there's a section 71 on other issues where you have lots and lots of space to list everything that I didn't think of. Okay, so you've got an entire page here. If you can, try to fit it on one line. If you can't fit it on one line, no big deal, because this form expands by itself. But I want you to know that you're not just restricted to the stuff that I'm saying. You can include other stuff that's important to your, to you, or happened a lot in your targeting. I also want to draw your attention that there's an entire section for threats and retaliation that you might suffer for writing this affidavit, which can happen. But if it does happen, then it should be put before a judge that these intelligence agencies are penalizing your right to testify. I think that's very, very important. Then you can testify about all the different warfare operations against you, psychological warfare, physical warfare, biological and chemical warfare, blah, 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 even down to Holocaust and genocide, right? Then there's an entire section where you can tick every single one of your rights that has been violated, okay? And again, you can state, when did your rights start to be violated, month and year, how often were they violated, and do you have evidence, yes or no? And this section is very important to fill out to show to a judge just how many of our rights get violated in this targeting program, okay? Now, the universal human rights are universal, as they say, and the next section, hang on, the next section here is the violation of the Geneva Conventions. Sometimes the offenses repeat, but understand that these are different legal frameworks, okay? There's the human rights, there's the Geneva Conventions, for crimes against humanity as well. And then there's another section, which is the next one, hang on. It's different crimes against humanity. So keep ticking, even if you have already testified in a different legal construct. I just want a judge to see just under every single aspect, like crimes against humanity, Geneva Conventions, or human rights. It's always, masses and masses of offenses. Now, there's something called the European Convention on Human Rights that you might think that just are not relevant for you if you are in the United States. But actually, They can be. If, for example, it turns out, as it has been shown, that your intelligence agencies in the US have been set up by the Brits. And it would mean that the Brits are using American intel to commit human rights offenses that they themselves would not be allowed to commit in Europe. Of course, they still do, right? Don't get me wrong. But it would also mean that if it turns out that the controllers of the American intel agencies are in Europe and are government organizations in Europe, there would be even more questions to be asked why they're violating something that they are bound by, which is the European Convention on Human Rights. Okay? Then there might be violations of other rights, the Protection from Harassment Act in the United Kingdom, employment rights, and so on, that you can testify about. So basically, I'm saying, please fill out also the European Convention on Human Rights violations, even if you're not in Europe. Okay? And if nothing else, to be able to compare your case to that of other people. Okay? And remember, if you think this is a lot of work to fill it out, remember that you're trying to save your own life. You're trying to get millions and millions of dollars in, sorry, these are messages popping up on YouTube. Remember that you're also trying to get millions and millions of dollars in compensation. And you're also trying with every affidavit to help masses of other victims. Okay, so please start filling this out here. Please take the time. Oh yes, denial of help, very important. Denial of help is you list everybody who denied you help, okay? And here, of course, once they deny you help, it's continuous. So you can either tick continuous or you tick occurred n times, right? Because they just denied you help, so they won't help you in future either. So you can fill it out both ways. Now here, down here, self-help, what type of self-help did you have to do? You know, to engage in shielding, I had to use continuous shielding, so I'll tick it here as continuous. You know, every single day I had to use shielding. And then this is very important. What are the costs that you incurred? You know, try to estimate the value of anything that was stolen, or the damage of replacing items, that they even clothes that they've cut up. How much was the value of the clothes, you know, roughly? How much was the cost of your measuring devices, of your shielding, of any IT or repair costs? For example, I had to buy this new computer, so I have to write that as well, right? Any loss in earnings because you were at home and tortured and you couldn't earn an income, right? Or you were targeted by other means. Of course, also loss in business income if you were running your business, very important. And when you enter these, you can just, what you can do is, I'll show you how it works. The first column is the currency. So because if you're in the US, you would write USD for US dollars. If you're in Britain, you would write Great British Pounds, GBP. And if you're in Switzerland, you would write CHF, or if you're in the Eurozone, Euro. Or if you're anywhere else in the world, write your local currency that these numbers are being stated in. And then here you write the sum. So let's say they stole 300 euros from me. Do I have evidence for that? Yes, I kind of have. Cost of property damage, again, and with euro, once you pick the currency, you can just do copy and paste here, you know, so you can just write it all there where it applies. Property damage, I think by now something like 2,500 roughly. Do I have evidence for the property damage? Yes, I do. Repair costs, gosh, at least 1,000. Oops, sorry. 1,000 IT repair costs and computer costs. And then you can do a much more detailed estimate if you have the bills, if you want to, or you just do a rough estimate. And then as you're entering those numbers, the total is added up automatically if you write the numbers like this. You just, I would say, you round it to the nearest unit of your currency, right? So that you have whole numbers. And then it just tots up the total. Everything you write in this column, the total appears automatically down here. So you don't have to do anything, you know. And then again, you can state what currency this is in, and this would be whatever, euros or Swiss francs, no, whatever. Okay. So that's easy to fill out. And now filling out these diagrams are also easy. This is where were the most common attack locations, injury locations, or pain locations. And I have a male and a female diagram, okay, here. So you just pick whatever applies to you. And this is the female diagram for attack, pain, and injury locations. And the second set is for chip implants. So do you know, have you been shot by RFID sniper shots, or you know, do you have known chip implant locations? And if so, you mark it on here. And again, I've got a female model. Now, you might ask, how the hell do I mark it on here? Because I would have to print it off and draw it on. And the answer is no, you don't have to. What you do is, you just go to this model, and then you select, there should be some drawing tools. Actually, I've explained this in the, sorry, this frog sound was Gab. There was a new message on Gab. But what I wanted to say is, if you go, I think in this new upload, I can't actually find the tools, but what I do have, show draw functions. Okay, you click this little, that's it. You click this little pencil, show draw functions, that's it. And then you have this taskbar appear down here, and I would say select a circle. Under basic shapes, select a circle, okay? And then you draw wherever your chips are. So let's say most people have a big fat chip on the back of their head. So what you can do is just draw a circle like that, you know, and the size of the circle can indicate the size of the chip. And then what you can do is you click on this. Oops, if it doesn't pick up, you click on the side, and then you click on this object again, and you can select the color, the fill color. And I would say pick something like red. Okay, so it's easy to see. And this is the outer line, so that could be red as well. And then you have a big red dot on the back of your head, you know, and it shows that's where chip is. What you can also do is click on this and then press Control C, Control V, which, oops, damn, it jumped all the way to the start. Sorry, let's go back here. Let's go back to the end here. Oops, there. So with Control V, there should be 2 now. And if I, oh shit, it didn't. Okay, so let's do it today again. Control C. Okay, so I just copied it. And if I click somewhere, if I press Control V, okay, so now I just press Control V, and there should be a second dot, a second red dot that I can move about. I can just grab it here. Okay, and I can just place this red dot. Maybe you have a chip in your, you know, in your shoulder, not on your shoulder, in your shoulder, or maybe you have it chip somewhere in your eyes or your ears, so you can put a marker there. Okay, and with these little objects, once you select them, you can do Control C and Control V to place a second object. But be aware, when you do Control V, it will put 2 objects on top of each other. So you have to highlight one and move them around with up and down cursors to see that they're 2 separate objects. And then you will have a chip somewhere, you know, in the ears. So if you've got voice to skull, I can tell you that you will most likely have, you know, some chip. So again, let's select this object in both ears. So Control C, Control V. Hang on, why is it not making? Okay, maybe you have to click on the side, Control V, and now there's a second object that I can move around. So I'm grabbing this and I'm putting it there, and I'm kind of trying to highlight that there are somehow 2 chips in the ears. Okay, so you have to make these circles small enough. But you can play around, and what you can also do is make this the view a bit bigger by going down here and selecting a bigger view like that. And then it makes manipulation and moving about of these objects much easier. Just be aware that sometimes if this happens, you have highlighted the big box of the drawing of the person. So you just click somewhere on the side, okay, and then you can select a particular object that you then want to move around by hand like this. And you can always make them smaller, these circles, like that. Okay, so now you have a little circle, and it looks like that, you know. So play around with it and use these drawing tools. And as a reminder, you use this pencil to activate them, and just, you know, take your time, and then you can zoom out down here when you're finished, like this, and take your time to mark all the different locations on the body where you might have chips, you know. And as always, press save, and then you can work on this bit by bit as you're continuing. But now we're almost at the end of this affidavit, okay? And you could see it's very easy to do. It's not a big deal, okay? You just have to be patient, go through it bit by bit. And then maybe the only challenge is, you know, fiddling around a bit with these, drawing red circles and placing them everywhere, but you will master that. It's, once you try it yourself, it's super easy. Okay, so now the final section to fill out is the perpetrators. So here you have to be aware that I only can accept anonymous perpetrators. So here, do not name names, and that's because I'm gonna publish this. So if your perpetrators are the local police chief, write things like the local police chief who gang stalked me and my husband, or something like that, you know. Then maybe a surgeon at a large local hospital who implanted me, and so on. And then you write things like neighbors or your boss at work, or, you know, but you go through and you identify people by their function and their relation to you. You don't identify them by name. Now, there will be a stage with a detailed affidavit that will be personal to you, where you can actually write down the bastard's name. And in the ultimate court case, that will be your court case, you will write a detailed affidavit where you name the names. That's the entire point of having a court case, okay? But what this affidavit is for is to establish the existence of these crimes in court, and to get judges to say, yes, this is absolutely illegal. There's lots and lots of victims, and we need to do something to stop these criminals, okay? But for that, we'll have to first establish it on a state level, right? And then in the next round, we go after individual culprits, okay? And here, you can add as many lines as you like. If you fill out the third one, which is maybe downstairs neighbors, these are people who targeted me for sure. So downstairs neighbors, oops, who harassed me and terrorized me. Now, if you press enter, you will just expand this field. If you want to enter another person, you select, you point at the side of this row here, an arrow will appear. You click, you highlight the row, and then you do right click and say row insert. And then you insert a row at the end. But you can also insert 3 rows if you like that. You press OK, and then there are 3 new rows. In the first one, you write 4, 5, and 6. These are the perpetrators whom you're naming. And now it could be things like, I don't know what. It could be a former boss at work who mobbed me and was involved in gang stalking, for example. I mean, I'm just giving examples. I'm not telling you what to write. But, you know, you just continue writing this, and the numbers are just to identify how many people you are naming there. And then you can always write something at the end, a large number of unidentifiable gang stalkers, you know, stuff like that. Or several unidentified police officers in in a nearby city, for example, you know. So what this perpetrators list is for is to give a judge a feel for the number of people involved, for the vastness of this crime. So what type of perpetrators are we looking for? And every victim case has a telltale, very personal selection of perps, okay? It could also be that, and this happens more often than you would think, that you have VIP stalkers, right? Now, not everybody has been or is being stalked by Michael Jackson, but there are people who are literally being stalked or have been stalked by high-up politicians in America. And that's because they're typically women who have been sold as sex objects and sex torture slaves to these high-up politicians, right? Now, in that case, you might not be able to name those politicians, but you most certainly can state that some high-up VIP politician, for example, stalked you and kept crossing your path every single time you went out shopping. That can happen quite easily, actually. And, you know, higher politicians don't always pick glamorous, rich girls to torture and stalk. Typically, they pick women who can't fight back based on their finances. So it can absolutely happen that if you live in Detroit, some high up politician in Detroit is stalking you, or maybe a politician from a nearby town. It can even happen that once or twice you're stalked by a very famous politician who doesn't even live in your town. He was just flown in, you know, for a bit of stalking fun that he maybe did on a business trip. So you never know. And if you have seen somebody famous and you recognize them, you could either say it was that person or it was a lookalike or somebody they selected to look literally to be the spitting image of Donald Trump. That can happen. And there are many impersonators out there, right? So just honestly write what you saw and understand that whatever you saw, there's nothing that I haven't heard before, okay? If you now suddenly write, well, I went shopping and I was stalked by aliens, well, I have heard something similar. It wasn't actually stalking, but I have heard people report about all sorts of stuff like medieval knights entering their bedroom at night or aliens running around their front garden. This could be either agents dressed up as aliens, as the case may be, or maybe footage was broadcast to your eye implant. Either way, you can write it and then you say, I was not sure if this was just footage sent to my eye implant, which can happen, or maybe there was reasons for you to believe that they were actually there. For example, one idiot ran into, I don't know what, a bucket and kicked it over and made a, very loud sound. Well, in that case, it's probably not footage to your eye implant. Probably the idiot was right there. And then you can go out and see the bucket turned over, which means somebody was actually in your garden running around like a moron, so that happens too. So please just testify to give people an idea of what kind of criminals are involved, where they are in society, and how prevalent all this is. Okay, so that's very, very important. And once you got here, you're finished. And of course, keep in mind, you don't have to write it in sequence. You can just hop around back and forth. But when you're finished, the next step is here. That's already the end of the public part of the affidavit. But before we get to the last page, by the time you're finished, what you do is you go back to the very beginning, which is the summary and the cross-check that I talked to you about. And then you go here line by line and you say, have you filled out or read? So in the very first 4, affected doesn't really apply. Affected means, have you read the bloody thing? And for all the others, it means, are you affected by this type of crime? So the first line is personal information, oath. Are you affected by the oath? Well, what that means is, have you read the oath, which is this one here, right? The first line, that's the oath. Oh, scheiße. Let me go back. The first line here. I, Catherine Horton of so-and-so street, blah, blah, state on oath and say as follows. That's the oath. And if you have read it and if you have filled it out, right, you go back to the captain's cross-check down here. And you say, yes, okay, remember, affected doesn't apply for the first 4. You say, yes, I have read it. And then in the second round, yes, so the first tick is, yes, you have filled it out. The second X is, the second X here means you have checked that you have filled it out correctly. And then, have you chosen a document authentication code? Yes, I have. Have you filled it out correctly? And then you go to the front page and you check the footer on every page, and you can see a footer just here, right? And that looks about right. So I can say, yes, I have selected it correctly. Have you read the permissions for use? Yes. Have you read them again and checked you understand them? Yes, I have. Have you included a photo ID? Yes, I have. Have you checked that it still looks nice and pretty? Yes, it's okay. I can live with that. So you say, yes, I've checked it. Now, the reason why you have to do a double is because I want to give a judge, you know, a way to test that the person who filled it out really took great care to ensure that the information is correct. Okay. Now, this summary and authors cross-check, well, we are just about to fill it out now, so I'm not going to check it. But here, targeting in general, does it apply to you? Yes, it does, right? So targeting in general was the first section we filled out, which was this one. As soon as you fill out something in a section, you have to place an X in the cross-check. Then you always go back to the section and you go through it line by line again and say, is the age bracket correct? Okay, in my case, it obviously isn't, but you don't need to know how old I am. Yeah. Sex is obviously female. I'm single. I don't have children. Yes, it's correct, 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 correct. And then you go through and you check every line. And when you finish checking the line, you go back to the cross-check and you say, yes, I have checked it. It's correct. And then you go to the next section, classical crime. Does it apply to you? Yes, it does. As soon as you have placed a single X in the section, it applies to you. You are affected by it. So here I've got 3 X's. Therefore, I have to tick the section. And then you go through line by line. Have I filled it out correctly? Yes, I have. Okay, back to the captain's cross-check. And then I put an X here and I say, yes, I have checked it, and so on. Should a section not apply to you, let's say you filled it out, everything, but you have not been attacked with fungi or parasites. So fungi are mushrooms, okay, some fungal infection. If you haven't been affected by one thing, you don't tick this box and you don't tick checked, okay? You just leave it empty. And the idea is that if you've just ticked the sections that apply to you, somebody who has to compare many, many cases can just go to the captain's cross-check section here, and this is the overall summary, and visually you can just see what applied. This person is affected by classical crime, has been stalked, and you can also immediately see that they took great care to fill out the section that applies to them because they ticked both boxes. So they filled it out, yes, it applies, but they also confirm with the second X that they checked it, and they can testify under oath that they have filled it out correctly, which means the start date of the offense has been filled out correctly for every offense in that section. The frequency has been filled out correctly, and the fact that they have evidence or not has been filled out correctly. Okay? You understand that? So because this affidavit is so big, and you might have hopped back and forth, I want you to ensure that every section that applies to you has been marked. And I also want you to ensure that every section that applies to you and has been filled out correctly. Okay? So the last thing, the absolute last thing that I want to have is sloppy work. Okay? That's going to put such a huge, massive dent through everything. I can't let it pass. So I have to get affidavits which are the highest quality. Okay? So no mistakes. You double checked it. You testify that you checked it, and so on. This is the idea. Okay? So then when you're finished with the author's cross-check, right? What you do is you go back to the very last page, and that is the last thing you need before you're totally finished. Okay? Finished with filling out this affidavit. So let me share my screen again. Let's go back to the document. So let's say you filled out this section and you took your time, and remember there are 2 pages of this, okay, because there's so many sections. And then the last bit that you have to fill out is the statement of truth and the witnessing. Okay, so let's go to the last page. Oops, this is the last page. And the one before shows clearly that this is the end of the public part of the affidavit. So if you send your affidavit to me, I will upload the inner section. Oops, sorry. The inner section that starts after, oops, where is this? After this page here, but I will leave out the first page that identifies you. Okay, I will start here and I will finish after the anonymous perpetrator list here. Okay, and this is the end of the public part of the affidavit. The private part of the affidavit, which will be kept confidential, and if you send it to me, it will just be submitted as part of my court case, but only the judge will see it. Okay, the judge and the other parties who I'm suing. This is, of course, also confidential. And what you need to do is you don't fill this out here. You print this page off. Okay. So when you finish the entire affidavit and you've filled out everything, what you do before filling out this, well, actually, one thing you can do is the print of your name. Okay. So this you can do on the computer. Oops. So you can write this on your computer, Catherine Horton, okay, but you don't fill any of the others out. And maybe if you're going to sign it on the same day, you know, if you're really going to sign it on the same day, you can fill out the date, but I actually would say don't fill out the date, because maybe you print it off and take it to be witnessed the day or the week after, and then the date is wrong. So don't fill out the date, just print your name. And then when you're finished, you of course save, okay. And then you just have to do one thing. Please do not send me this OpenOffice document because the OpenOffice document can be altered. It can be modified. Instead, you press this button here for PDF. So you just click that. And then you can, in your downloads folder or wherever, it will make a PDF document of this. You just press save. And within a moment, it will have saved it. Okay, that's done. So you go to your downloads folder, and then you will see that there's a PDF document. So this is the OpenOffice document here. As you can see, this is in the format OpenOffice, Open Document Text. And then here, this is a PDF file, this one. And I can also arrange it by the time it was modified. So this is the OpenOffice file. Do not send me the OpenOffice file. Send me the PDF. It's this one here. Okay. I haven't downloaded Acrobat yet. God damn it. So you have to download, you know, Adobe Acrobat, of course, to read this thing. Okay, the PDF. But I think people know that. I mean, if you really want me to go through those steps, I can also show you how quick it is to download Acrobat. You just say Adobe Acrobat download. And here it's the reader that you want, the Acrobat reader. And you say system requirements, blah, 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 and install now. You don't need any, you know, security. You don't need the Chrome extension really. But I mean, if you want to, you can have it. Install now. It should just take seconds. Sorry, most people have this on their computer, but my computer is brand new, so that I didn't have this. And there's Adobe Reader, so you just double click this, and I've just double clicked it, so it should start by itself. My virus scanner has convinced itself that it's safe. That's great. And then you just wait a bit. You allow it to install itself on your computer. Sorry to labor this. It's boring like hell watching this, but for all those people who don't really understand how to use computers, you can just see how incredibly easy it is to get all the software that you need. So you don't have to be afraid of installing things anymore. In the very, very olden days, some 25 years ago, installing software was still a pain in the neck. and things went badly wrong many, many times. But these days, it literally just takes moments, a bit of patience, and it barely ever goes wrong, right? I mean, now I shouldn't say it out loud as I'm installing stuff, because then things tend to go wrong. But you know what I mean. Okay, so you just click your way through. Oh man. Okay, so just wait with me patiently. Maybe in the meantime, as we're waiting, maybe I can just, entertain you with my voice, and I can tell you once more how important it is to download this affidavit. But you know all that. But what I really hope to do with this video is to show you. I mean, you can pause it at any moment. You can look back at it in months and weeks' time. But what I want you to see is just how very, very easy it is to fill out this affidavit, okay? What you need is a proper laptop, but it could be a cheapest chips laptop, okay? It could be the bottom of the range. That's good enough. You don't need anything fancy. But please do not try to fill out the affidavit template on your phone. Do not try to fill it out on a tablet, because it will frustrate you. Please, please get yourself a laptop, and know that you're not just getting the laptop to fill out the affidavit. You're getting the laptop to write up your court case, okay? You are getting a laptop to do significant amounts of paperwork that unfortunately the government and the secret services have forced on you. And unless you do all that paperwork, they will literally try to kill you. Okay, so that's why we're doing all this. I am not, asking you to buy any software. I'm not promoting any software. We're just using the bog standard software that's out there, and that 99% of the people in the world use all the time, every day, standard programs, just to be able to open documents and to edit them. And heck, I really don't understand why Adobe is taking so long. Honestly, I mean, this is taking as long as installing an operating system, but it's just the software. I think my download rate is very, very low because I'm broadcasting. And also this installation is very slow because I'm loading down the processor. But let's wait. Okay, we can have a countdown now. 10, 9, 8. Okay, what else can I tell you? So as you could see, the only software you need is really OpenOffice and Adobe Acrobat. And Adobe Acrobat is standard for reading PDF files. So I expect that most of you have that. Ah, come on. I don't really want to click away from this window because I want to show people what the full install looks like. And now that I said that installs never fail, and the intelligence agencies are sitting, I'm sure, already on my new computer, I think they want to spite me, and they're like, you really think that we can't just mess up the install of Adobe? Watch us. Ah, geez. Okay, so while this stuff is going, okay, I will leave it here in the back window. Let's see if there are any questions. So I will switch back. You will see yourself probably a million times now. Okay, I'm just gonna authenticate a couple of answers. So let's see, are there any, okay, no, let's not now. Are there any questions? Do you guys have any questions? Okay, this now in the window, you will see it a million times. I'm sorry about that. Are there any questions about the install process here? Anything that, people don't understand? If you've got any questions, please type them into the chat now that I'm looking at it. Okay, let me switch back. Is this still installing? Crikey, it's still at 90%. I mean, this is just annoying like hell. Okay, guys, see you guys in the chat. Are there any questions? Any serious questions? Okay, it finished. Okay, so here we are. Now it says it has finished, so you can just we don't need to start it now. Let's say finish. Okay, great. So that's done. Now we can actually open this PDF file here. So you just double click it. Okay. And then now you can say select Adobe. Hang on, let me just switch back. I don't need, this is a window. Okay, so YouTube messages. Let's try again. So when you open this file, you want to select Acrobat Reader. So press OK. And now, the first time it does a little spiel, but next time it should be really fast. Honestly, it should be really, really fast. I don't know what's happening here. Okay, there we are. So you have a final PDF of this. Okay, and the advantage is now people can't edit it, so I can't type anything here. Okay, so the text just stays, and this is why I want you to send me a PDF format, because what it means is that I can't by accident edit it. You know, I can't by accident mess up what you've written, and this is what we need. And you can see that. Let me just zoom out. You can see my photograph, and I'm just going to click through it. Okay, this is the beginning of the public part. This will be the author's cross-check, which would have many more X's typically. Okay, these are our answers. You can see all these X's have been preserved in there. Okay, the dates and so on. This is what it looks like. And now let's skip to the very end. This will be the last page, but let's just check. Okay, this is the perpetrator list, and this is the the chip location. Okay, so you can see it appears here quite easily visibly. This is what it should be like. And then what you do is, now that you have the PDF, the only thing you need to print off is this very last page. You don't need to print off the whole thing. You just print off this last page, and that's what you take to be witnessed. Okay, so print off this last page, and then you take it to a person entitled to administer oaths. And in the explanatory notes, it explains who that is. It does not have to be a full notary. Okay, sometimes a person entitled to administer oaths works at a bank or works at a local council. Okay, if you go to a notary, of course he can witness your signature, but it might be stupidly expensive. It might literally, some notaries charge like £80 or $80 for that. And frankly, you should pay less than $5 for this service, or it should even be for free. So I know in Germany, typically it's for free if you go to your local council, or you pay €1 or at most €5, and that's it. And what it means is that you take this piece of paper and you take photo identification, and then you show it to the person, and you say that you are making this oath, that you believe the facts stated in this affidavit that you just filled out to be true, and you declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct and would be your testimony if you were in a court of law. Okay, so in other words, you're not lying, you're saying the truth, and you would even stand up before a judge and repeat it because that's the truth. All right, that's what you are saying. The text of the statement of truth comes from the it's the regulations in the United Kingdom. That's the first sentence, and the regulations in the United States. Okay, but once you have satisfied those, excuse me, I've just talked for so long. Once you've satisfied the requirements in the UK and the US, the same applies anywhere else in the world. Okay, anywhere else is recognized. So what you do is you don't fill this out. You take it to the person entitled to administer oaths, which is, let's say, somebody at your local council who qualifies. And then you say, listen, I want you to witness my signature. So you put down this piece of paper, you show the person your photo ID, and you say, look, I'm this person. And now you will watch me sign this, and you will confirm that I signed this under my own will. I wasn't coerced. I am of sound mind. I am not totally crazy. You know, I'm not raving. I am actually the person, and I just want you to witness my signature. So then he's watching you. You write your date in handwriting as legibly as possible, and then you sign it. Okay. Then this bottom bit is for this person. So they will write the address of where they are. So this will be the address of the local council in the county of, you know, whatever county. It could be in England, Staffordshire, in the United Kingdom, or in the United States, you could strike out county and either you write the local county or you write your US state. Doesn't really matter. But please also write the country because this is international. And then you say this day of whatever months and whatever year. And then the person writes their full name in print and then they sign it. And sometimes they also put a stamp on it. Okay. And then what you do is this one page, you scan it in and you save it also as a PDF. And then you take your photo ID and then you cover up by using either, you know, covered tape or whatever, you cover up the serial number. Very, very important. Or you place it on the scanner such that a piece of paper is covering up the serial number, okay? And then you scan your photo identification as well. But it's very important that you cover up the serial number because if you don't, somebody who's intercepting your email can commit ID fraud. If you cover up the serial number, they don't know it, they can't really commit ID fraud because they're missing half of the information. Okay, that's why it's so important. So then you have scanned this, you have scanned your photo ID, and then what you do is you go back to the explanatory notes that you have downloaded in the very beginning. So let me just download them again here. So that was from the page, Stop 007. Okay, remember the explanatory notes explain everything for you. So here it is, the explanatory notes are down here. Okay, that's all you need to know. And as you can see, they're very, very detailed, but they explain every step. You don't need to know all this right now. You can read it at your leisure, blah, blah, blah. It's so detailed because it explains everything I said in this video step by step. It also shows you how to activate the draw functions, right? How to select the shapes, how to put circles on the body diagrams, how to write the list of perps, blah, 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 blah. And at the very end, it explains how to convert it to PDF. And it explains how to, fill out the statement of truth, how to take it to the person entitled to administer oaths. That's here. And then at the very end, this is the final captain's cross-check, right? If you're flying in an airplane before takeoff, there's a captain's cross-check. So what you do now is you go through this, you print off this page, and you tick it off one by one. Number one, have you spent enough time on each section? And are you sure you didn't neglect the letter sections? If you've filled out everything, you put a cross there. Yes. Have you filled out the author's cross-check, right? And have you marked both affected and checked for the items that apply to you? If you have, you check this. Have you included a passport quality photograph of yourself on affidavit page 1? That is affidavit page 1 is this one here, where you can find an image of myself. Yes, I have. So I mark that. Have you run a spell checker on the free text sections and corrected the mistakes? Well, the free text sections are only really on this page, the name of countries, which I hope you didn't screw up. And then the only place where you could have had spelling mistakes are at the end in the perp list. Okay, here. Now, if you downloaded OpenOffice like I told you, there should be a spell checker automatically. If you have not, what you can do, right, is you filled out the perp list. Yeah. Okay. This is now the OpenOffice file. And if you want to run a spell checker, you just select this here, auto spell check, or you go to tools and spelling and grammar, and you select that. Okay. And then you can just run a spell checker. And the reason why I should do that is because if you just write 6 sentences and it's littered with spelling mistakes, you will literally look like a fucking perp. Okay? You will either look like a perp who typically put in spelling mistakes, or you will look like a complete moron to a judge. And he's like, well, the person can't even write their own language, frankly. How much do I trust the affidavit? So that's why I should run a spell checker. Okay? But if you have, and oops, where is the, I wanted to go to here. If you have, you tick that, okay? Have you converted the affidavit into a PDF? Yes, we have. Have you printed off the document called Statement of Truth? Yes, we have. Have you signed the Statement of Truth before a person entitled to administer oaths? Let's say yes, we have. Have you scanned the signed and witnessed statement? Yes, it's now in a PDF file. Yes, you scanned it. And don't convert it into a JPEG. I want a PDF file from the scan, okay? Then have you scanned your passport ID with the passport or photo ID with the serial number covered up? Let's say yes, we have. And then you prepare an email to the JIT, which is the Joint Investigation Team, and you say, first of all, the subject, you copy and paste this text, okay? I want this subject so that I can pick out your email, all right? That it's actually an affidavit. In the body, I want you to copy and paste this text, which is, please find attached my affidavit that I submit to the JIT survey. I want this text because it states that you are actively submitting it. And I need that in writing, lest somebody says I've just nicked it off your computer or something. Okay, so I need an email with this subject line and this text. And then you attach to the email the PDF version, not the OpenOffice version, the PDF version of the big, long affidavit, all 94 pages. Okay, sometimes the pages expand to be longer than 94 pages if you type something that changes the line break or expands over a page, so don't worry about that, but at least I need 94 pages, you know. Then have you attached the PDF of the scan of the witness statement of truth? Let's say yes, we have. Have you attached the scan of your passport and ID or passport/ID card without the serial number? Yes, we have, let's say. And then you take this email and you send it to all 4 of these email addresses. So you can just do a copy and paste of these email addresses. And most email programs, when you paste in several emails, it will put semicolons in between and recognize that these are 4 separate recipients, okay? The reason why I should send it to all these email addresses, they all go to me, okay? They don't go to shadowy organizations. No, they go to me. But of course, remember that as soon as you send an email or do anything online, it will be read by the NSA, right? But if you're victim, everything that you do is read by the NSA anyway. So I wouldn't get too worried about that. These 4 emails are there because when I started, the joint investigation team still had, you know, Ramola and Millicent and Karen. And what was intended is that every one of us has one of these emails and we will take care of it. Should one of us fall under a bus, the other people would still have access to the affidavits and be able to work with them, right? But unfortunately, I'm now on my own. And I decided to keep these affidavits should one of the email boxes be hacked. Okay. So now I have all the access to all these email addresses. And the idea is if you just send it to all of them and your affidavit that gets deleted from, let's say, Proton Mail, well, it still appears in the others. Okay. So then I could be able to prove that it actually has been deleted from an account. And that's all explained down here. And then when you press send, that's it. You're finished. You're done. And then when you have done that, what you can do is you can go to my website. And this is something you can do anyway, even before filling out the affidavit, by the way. Because once you have submitted your affidavit, you should also benefit from the affidavits of other people. So you go down here, you click on the second link, and then for your own case, your own court case, you download all these affidavits. So you can click on them, and this is what it looks like when somebody has filled it out correctly. So you can see it starts with the author's cross-check, okay? And then I can scroll down here, the details. And as you can see, this is perfectly anonymous. You have no idea who this person is. Okay, somebody from the US. That's all you know. And then here you can see how they testified about their intrusive surveillance, about neighborhoods harassing them, and so on, right? And then if you go down through all these sections, you will find sometimes people don't fill out these body diagrams. That can happen, and that's okay. But you can see how many relatives have taken part, neighbors, colleagues, and so on, right? You can see the anonymous affidavit, and then this is where it stops. I have completely stripped all other sections that would identify them, okay? And then as you're going through these affidavits, you will find others where they actually have filled out. I think this one, if I remember correctly, might have filled out the pain locations. Oops. Hang on, or maybe another one. But, you know, you get the idea. You can go through and you can see, you know, was it this one? Well, you can see slight variation between the affidavits, but you can also see all the index in one glance. You can see the type of crimes these people suffered from. So immediately you can see that this woman has been heavily attacked with absolutely everything under the sun, right? Hang on. And then we can go down, and I think, oh yes, here, for example, you can see at the end how somebody filled out the chip implant locations. Or this is actually the regions where they are being attacked and they feel pain. And what you can see immediately here is, first of all, that genitals are assaulted. That happens all the time. Breasts are assaulted with women, but also sometimes the back, like the kidney and things like that, the spine, you know, and kneecaps are also being assaulted all the time, you know, ankles, thigh muscles, and even chips down in the fingers, you know, that can also happen. So this sort of setup is actually quite typical. Some people have fewer markers here, but that is literally what it looks like in most cases, you know. But I think it's also the very, very first time that a judge would be presented with such detailed evidence. So up until today, okay, most judges dealt with individual cases of people individually testifying, but never ever before has the judiciary been presented with the full targeting program and with one person saying, look, I've been assaulted by all these methods, but there's many, many other people who say exactly the same, and, you know, placing these witness affidavits side by side. What you can do with these affidavits once they're finished is just click through and say how many report about directed energy weapons. It's almost everybody. I think it's, with the 15 I have, I think it's about 80%. How many complain about intrusive surveillance and stalking? It's almost 100%, you know? And this is how I can show how prevalent these crimes are. But you can do so much more, because there's a section called denial of help. And everybody has reported that lawyers refuse to help and police officers refuse to help. And I can now show it by looking at these 15 affidavits, and 90% of them say, yeah, lawyers have refused to, you know, to help us. There are some people who never contacted a lawyer, and for them this, you know, field is blank. But then I can say, from those people who have testified, so most people try to contact their police, and out of those, 90% say the police refused assistance. Big deal, right? And then you can prove it to a judge that all across the world, 90% of the victims testify about having, you know, complete refusal of help from the police. Now, if it was just event counting in statistics, right, something like 10 events is not really that great. But then again, in rare processes at CERN, sometimes 4 or 5 events were already enough to prove something, you know? So it depends. But here it's not incidents counting. Here it's highly complex cases where every affidavit has so many offenses testified about. It's a total statistical outlier in itself. And then when you start grouping total statistical outliers where people complain about prolific housebreaking, you know, vandalism, directed energy weapon assaults, rape, and, you know, a million of really extreme crimes, then when you place them one next to each other, you can tell that there are all these freak statistical outliers all saying the same thing. In other words, it is a huge, massive international program that involves all the governments. And boom, you have the evidence right there. And I'm very pleased to say that already with these 15 affidavits I got, I can prove just that. And you know what? All the affidavits are made under oath, with photo ID provided, with the signature, signing a statement of truth, with the signature witnessed. It's the highest standard out there. The only thing that's new is it's a tick box affidavit, but from just the sheer volume of the cases, it's pretty obvious why a tick box affidavit is already a lot of work, and frankly, the most that I can ask of victims at this stage, right? So it's literally physically the best thing that we can do in the world to bring targeting, to make it public, to bring it to the judiciary's attention, and to demand emergency injunctions against the perpetrators. And this is what we're after. And I'm very, very grateful for the 15 people who have already supported me since this affidavit was published a few months ago. I am extremely grateful to you guys. And know that every single time somebody testifies from a certain country, it activates several people in that country, or several people of that, type of person with that type of assault having suffered, having suffered those. So there's many victims in the background who keep going through these affidavits in detail and say, oh, damn, look, all these people testify about, heart problems or housebreaking. And before, my family didn't believe me. And now I can point to all these affidavits from around the world and say, look, all the way from Russia to Canada to the United States and, Japan even, people say the same thing. They're complaining about remote neural monitoring. It is real. And it's not just remote neural monitoring, it's combined with directed energy weapons, typically with gang stalking and housebreaking and computer hacking, right? Big deal. This is not something that just can happen to you accidentally, can it, right? Individually, you might be the victim of a burglary, you might be the victim of a hacking incident, but nobody on the planet outside of this government targeting program is the victim of all of these combined and some, including assassination attempts and stuff like that, right? Repeatedly, that doesn't happen. But for the victims, it's a day-to-day occurrence. I mean, heck, I had several assassination attempts and I keep having them, right? And I have hacking and a million other things. And I can see pets being assaulted around me and family members being murdered. And I can testify about all that. If it was just me, myself and I, people would say, woof, that sounds crazy. We've never heard it. But now I can prove it's actually not crazy. It happens all around the world, right? And the detail of what's described by every person and how articulately they communicate with me via email, and that they provide photo ID and they say it under oath, shows that they haven't just made it up. No one just testifies under oath, right? Goes to a person entitled to administer oaths just to testify about nonsense for a laugh, right? I think at this stage, I've cut out the teenage stack parties and stuff like that, right? Who might stray into this for a joke. Okay, so it's pretty serious. And at this point, there's no way to disable or, wipe away these affidavits because they are the highest standard recognized by the judiciary. So in other words, there's no way to make these affidavits disappear ever again. And more affidavits are going to come to back you up about what you have testified, So that's all I wanted to say. I have talked for a very long time, but I went through it in great detail. And I hope you now understand with the second video how to download it, how to fill it out. So with the 2 videos I made, you should all be on your way. And I'm looking forward to receiving more affidavits. Many people have already told me that they're in the process of filling it out, but don't be shy. Keep at it and understand that this affidavit is one of the really big things that you can do to save your life and that of your family members and friends and your community members, because we are all under attack. And in 2019, we have to bring this to the judiciary and we have to have this shut down. So thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you to all of you who are intending or in the process of filling an affidavit out or have done so. You are saving lives and you are saving humanity. Thank you very, very much, and bye for now.